Okay, it's been a long week with Shavuot and everything. Welcome. Tonight we're going to go through some heavy-duty stuff. It's a heavy-duty parsha. It's a heavy-duty topic. So let's jump straight into it. So, I'm sure a lot of you know about the Sotah, right? The Sotah, the basic story of Sotah. We're going to delve into the depth of Sotah and its meaning in our lives today. So let's just get the basic meaning of Sotah, what it is, and so we can expound the lessons in it. First of all, I want to say that the Talmud says a Sotah never happened. There never was a case of a Sotah. And this is the longest parsha in the whole Torah. There's one aliyah in the Torah, the fourth one, which is dedicated to the story of a Sotah. And there's 49 pages of the Talmud, which is only about the Sotah. In fact, the Rabbi said we should learn the Sotah during the times of, from between Passover and Shavuot, because there's 49 pages and there's 49 days, so we learn a page a day. So, Chabadniks, we are well versed in Sotah, because every year we learn it and relearn it again and again and again. So, a Sotah. First of all, what is a Sotah? If a man is married to a woman, and he suspects her of infidelity, he suspects, he sees her being a little bit too close to another guy. So he goes ahead and he warns her and he says to her, do not be with this other man. Okay? Warning. She then goes and she secludes herself with this other guy in a room. She is now called a Sotah. And the law is, since we don't know what happened in the room, because if we do know what happened in the room, what happens to her? It's stoned. We kill her. We kill her and we kill him. Right? We kill her. We're going to analyze all this in a moment. We kill her because that is classic infidelity. But since we don't know what happened in the room, we now send her to Jerusalem, where there's a whole ceremony, and she drinks Sotah water. Sotah water is basically God's name in water. She drinks it. If she sinned, she will die a really, really horrible and painful death, and her person she sinned with. And if she didn't do anything in the room, she will have tremendous blessings. If she didn't have children till then, she'll have children. If she only had female children, she'll have male children. There's a whole bunch of blessings. This is the basic thing of Sotah. Let's start analyzing it and draw beautiful lessons from this. So first of all, if a man sees that a woman is too friendly with a guy, he warns her. How about the other way around? What happens if a woman, right? We women's rights, right? What happens if a woman sees that a guy her husband is a little bit too friendly with a woman, and she warns him, don't be with that woman. Now he goes and he's with that other woman. What happens to him? Nothing. Why does nothing happen to him?
You have more than one wife.
So, by law, a man is allowed to marry however many women he wants, as long as he can provide for them. Very, very expensive to marry a woman. But in theory you can. Now, over 1,000 years, Rabbi Gershom, he made a decree, a cherem, only the Ashkenaz communities accepted it, that a man is not allowed to marry more than one woman. The Sfarim never accepted it. And that's why you have in Yemen, in different places in Israel even, until 70 years ago, you had men who were married to more than one woman. Even today, you still have the old-timers, they married more than one woman, no problem. Arabs today, you go in Jerusalem, they marry more than one woman, no problem. So in theory, if a woman warns a man, don't be with another woman, there's no warning. What do you want? Nothing happened. There's nothing wrong. What happens if a single woman, not married, is with another man? What happens to her? Nothing? Is she allowed to? Is a single woman allowed to be with a single man? Both single. Is a single woman allowed to be with a married man? Let's say there's no problems with that. Allowed to or not allowed to? Yes?
I think if she's single, it depends what the connection. I mean, like to be with him, like in an intimate way.
Yes.
No,
Why not?
because mission is a law kosher.
The Torah says, one of the 10 commandments is, do not commit adultery. Let's just define that for a second. What is adultery in the Torah?
It's a married woman with someone else.
Married man, married woman, single man.
Woman, a single man is, and a married woman is adultery.
What about a single man? What about a
Isn't it
married...
defined by married woman? Isn't that the basic? It doesn't matter
Yes.
who she's with. It's a
Yes.
married woman with a single man or a married man.
Yes, so let's just define that, the exact definition.
Or maybe
When
you
the
just mean like מאורסת ונשואה.
just what? No.
אז הם כאילו, אז אולי רווקה כן?
No. When the Torah says do not commit adultery, it's very important for our conversation. We know exactly what we're talking about. It is only a married woman. She is not allowed to be with a single man, married man, I don't care what kind of man, but a married woman, that is considered adultery. Now, that is not to mean that it's kosher if she's a single woman. Doesn't mean that. It's still forbidden. It's absolutely forbidden. In the olden days, if a man wanted to marry a woman, he'd go under a tree, have relations with her, and that's it, they'd be married. In fact, today, when we do a chuppah, we do 3 things under a chuppah, but any one of these 3 things technically is allowed. When a man marries a woman, he does kesef, shtar, and bia. Kesef means, what part of the chuppah ceremony? Is the ring.
Right.
The ring that he gives to the woman is kesef. That's why it's very important when a man marries a woman, that the man gives the ring to the woman, not the other way around. I once officiated a wedding, and the guy said on the day of the wedding, when do I give the ring to the woman, to the girl? I mean, when does she said to me, when do I give the ring to the man? I said, well, you don't give a ring to him. She says, I want to give him a ring. It's exchange of rings. I kid you not. This was a crisis. This is absolutely forbidden, because it's a man who's mikadesh a woman. He sanctifies a woman, not the other way around. So this was a big problem for me. I had to really come with an innovative method. What I did was, I convinced her to give him the ring at the end of the chuppah. So what I did was, I kind of ended the chuppah. The guy who stood on the cup broke the cup, and then we sang Odi Shama, and then I said, made an announcement. Now the woman wants to give him a ring. Well, the chuppah was over for all intents and purposes. But kesef, this is what it means. Kesef means that the man gives the woman a ring. Shtar is the ketubah, and then bia is the yichud room, which Sfaradim don't have, by the way. Sfaradim don't have a yichud room because, I won't get into it now, but they don't have it. But according to Hashem, that's a yichud room. So, but technically speaking, any one of these 3 things you can marry with. The Rambam writes very clearly, if a man sees a woman in a motel, wants to be with her, have relations, that's it, you are married. Later on, the sages said, if you do that, you're going to get lashes. We will give you lashes if you do that. It's not the way to do things anymore. But I just want to point out that it's not under the restriction of do not commit adultery.
What about the story of Judah and Tamar? Like he didn't have the intentions to marry her, right?
The story of Judah and Tamar, he did have intentions to marry her. He sees a woman, she created a tremendous desire in him. He wanted to marry her. Not just that, he gave her 2 goats as a collateral. He gave her his signet, his ring. He gave it. It was for sure for wedding.
I thought that was like payment for like prostitution.
It was wedding. He married her. But going back to our case of Sotah, so if a man warns his wife, only in this situation, a man to his wife, he says, I see you friendly with this guy, I don't like it. So now there's an argument in the Talmud, witnesses you need, but going with the opinion that he can do it with her. Now, there are witnesses who say, we see her in a room with another guy. How long do the witnesses say that they saw that the guy and the girl were in the room together? Very important. There's a whole page in the Talmud, a page and a half actually, which just tells us, there's probably 16 opinions on that page, or page 3, Gimel Amud Aleph, in Sotah, as to how long They have to be there. Guess how long it is?
2 minutes.
How much?
2 minutes.
3 minutes.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. All the 16 opinions, I gave it away, right? But one opinion says the amount of time it takes to walk around a decal tree. A decal is a palm tree. Another guy says amount of time it takes to fry an egg. Another guy says amount of time it takes to fry 3 eggs. Another guy amount of time it takes to fry 3 eggs and swallow it. Those are the kinds of opinions that argue. And then the Talmud says, what about Ben Azai? One of the Talmud saying he was never married, so how does he know? So one opinion is the secrets of God he reveals to his sages. Another opinion was, he was married one time, then he got divorced. Anyways, the bottom line is, it's the amount of time. If a guy and a girl are in a room for a second, that does not constitute this problem. It's around 4 minutes. Today, just so you know, the yichud room, when a man, according to the Ashkenaz tradition, when a man and a woman get married and there's the yichud room, there's a rabbi, if you notice carefully, a rabbi and another witness who go and witness them in the room, the outside, they're guarding the door, making sure, and they leave them there for 8 minutes. 8 minutes is the shir lehachmer, the chumrah, 8 minutes. So when all of you get married, B'ezrat Hashem, one day, you'll be in the yichud room for 8 minutes unless you are Sephardic. Okay? By the way, the laws of yichud, which I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, apply like this as well. A man and a woman are not allowed to be in a room together. There's laws of yichud. Yichud means a man and a woman have no business being in a room one with the other. Absolutely no business. There's even problems with an elevator. Technically, the only reason why an elevator is permissible is because the elevator may open on any floor, right? And therefore, it's fine. But technically speaking, a man and a woman are not allowed to be together at all. Now, originally, the problem was only if it's a married woman. King David, as I explained a few weeks ago, made the rule for even for single man, single woman, and then later on, Shmai and Naftalion made the decree even for non-Jewish girl. You're not allowed to be together in a room with her. You have no business to be with her. Okay? So, there are 2 witnesses who say, this guy and this girl were in a room together for a few minutes, but we didn't see what happened, because if we did see what happened, then we kill her. Then they go to the Bet Din, and they testify, we warned the man and the girl that if they sin, we're going to kill them. And they still didn't listen, and we witnessed them committing adultery, then we kill them. If there's no warning, if there's no 2 witnesses, if there's one witness who says yes, and the other witness says, well, I fell asleep, I didn't really see, we do not kill them. Okay? By the way, a Bet Din that killed somebody once in 70 years was considered a cruel Bet Din. It was nearly impossible to kill people, because you had to have witnesses, and the witnesses have to warn you, and you had to commit the crime within a couple of minutes after the warning. Otherwise, you could say, I forgot. So it's very hard to kill somebody. So you have 2 witnesses who say, we saw the guy and the girl in a room, and we don't know what happened. Now we take the girl, and we offer her the opportunity to drink the sotah waters. And we tell her, we beg her, please admit to what you did. Admit. We really hammer her to admit. What happens if she now comes and admits? She says, you know what? I sinned with this other guy. What do we do with her now?
I think nothing.
Why?
There's no witnesses.
Shh, what do you mean? Do you need a better witness than her? She comes along and she says, I sinned with this guy.
We don't trust her.
We don't trust her?
No.
Why not?
I'm not sure why, but we don't trust her.
So the answer is, it's not about trust. We actually trust her. We trust her. So much so that we trust her, but we can't put her to death because you need 2 witnesses. In Judaism, we need 2 witnesses, 2 people. But what would happen is, she would lose her ketubah. When a man marries a woman, every single time he signs away, right? According to Ashkenaz tradition, he promises her 200 zuz when they get divorced. According to the Sephardim, I'm doing a Sephardic wedding in Mexico next month. Flying to Mexico for it, and according to the Sephardic tradition, the groom writes in the ketubah how much he's going to pay her. In this case, I think they wrote 500,000 shekels. So it's like a very expensive proposition to divorce your wife. But if she comes along and says, I sinned, she forfeits her money. She doesn't get anything. Okay? But if she insists, she says, I was good, I was kosher, no problem, we let her drink. And like I said, if she didn't sin, she'd have tremendous blessings. If she did sin, she'd really, really suffer a horrible death. Now,
Is she allowed to get divorced from her husband that accused her of cheating?
is she allowed to get divorced?
Well, does she get divorced?
If what?
Does she have the option to get divorced?
She always has the option to get divorced. You want to
Yeah.
get divorced, you get divorced, no problem at all. But if you sin, you get divorced without money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could it be possible for a woman who just wants the blessings and knowing she didn't sin,
Oh.
set something up? Just
So let's say a woman who's infertile, let's say, so she now sets up the whole thing. In technically speaking, she could set up the whole entire thing. It'd be very dangerous, but she could set up the whole entire thing, and she'd be forcing God to give her blessings. Yes.
Isn't that tricking God?
You know what? So be it. But yeah, technically speaking, you could. Now I want to take this story and bring it down into our lives today. Show you how it's applicable to our lives. Okay, with a couple of lessons here. First of all, the Torah begins this whole story. Isha kitiste. A woman when she turns away. Right? The whole thing started with a little bit of excessive wine, right? Why is she with another guy? They drank together, they went to a bar, they went to a nightclub, I don't know, they went to hang out together. That's how the whole thing started. But the word the Torah uses for it is kitiste. And the Talmud says the following statement: Ein adam choteh, a person sins only if a spirit of shtut, tiste from the word shtut. Shtut means shtuyot. Shtuyot means
foolishness.
a spirit of folly, a spirit of stupidity enters him. A person will not sin unless a spirit of stupidity enters him or her. That is the only way we sin. Otherwise, we would never, ever sin. The Yetzer Hara is called Uman Bimlachto. He's an expert in his field. He's an expert at making us sin. That is what he's good at. That's what he does. It says in the Parsha the following. It says every Nasi, every head of tribe offered a sacrifice. By Yom HaShvi'i, on the seventh day, Nasi Livnei Ephraim, Ephraim, the son of Joseph, offered a sacrifice. Elishama ben Amihud. Says the Medrash, Yosef hikdim v'shamar et Shabbat. Joseph kept Shabbat. In Egypt, Joseph was a viceroy of Egypt and he kept Shabbat. Right? Even though the Torah wasn't given yet, we all know that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the Shvatim, they studied Torah, they learned Torah. That's for a whole nother situation. How did they have the Torah if it wasn't given yet? But suffice to say, Joseph, because he kept Shabbat, it says, Chayecha shani meshalem leben mincha, I will now give you a prize that your great-grandchild, Elishama ben Amihud, should have the zchut, should have the privilege of offering a sacrifice on Shabbat. A normal person cannot offer on Shabbat, but your great-grandchild, he can offer on Shabbat. What does that mean? Because Joseph kept Shabbat, therefore his great-grandchild is not keeping Shabbat, he's offering a sacrifice on Shabbat. What are we talking about? What's this got to do with sinning? What's this got to do with sotah? Like, how does this come in like left field? So let's take a look at Joseph for a moment. The Talmud says that when we all die one day, after 120 years, we will come to heaven and there is no escaping the heavenly court. The heavenly judgment is like a tape recorder that plays every single action that we did in our whole lives. Not only action, but every single speech that we made. Not only speech, but it records our thoughts. Every single thought that we ever had in our 120 years are replayed. And there's no escaping. So if Bet Din Shel Ma'ala, if the heavenly court asks you, why didn't you serve God? Why did you sin? If you say, well, I had a Yetzer Hara, I had an evil inclination, they will tell you, was your evil inclination stronger than Joseph's? Why will they say Joseph? Because Joseph was seduced by Zalachia at what age?
17.
17. The Talmud says the Yetzer Hara is at its peak, its strongest, when it's 17 years old. When a person is 17, his evil inclination is raging. Talmud never knew about Manhattan, that evil inclination rages till 119 years old. But that evil inclination is raging. Joseph was a person who, under normal circumstances, should have sinned. Any normal person in his position would have failed miserably. In fact, the Chumash says, "Vayavo habayita la'asot menachto." Joseph came home one day to do his work. He wanted to sin with her. He couldn't bear it anymore. He could not bear it. Please, I want to sin with you. I can't bear it anymore. Why? His mother died at the age of, when he was how old? Anybody? 9 years old. The Bible describes Joseph as being a very emotional person. It doesn't describe anybody like it says about Joseph, how many times he cried. He cried. He was a very emotional person. He was very close with his mom. At 9 years old, she died, giving birth to triplets, to Binyamin and 2 sisters. At 17 years old, he was captured by his brothers. He was thrown into a pit. They wanted to kill him. In the end, they decided not to kill him, but they sold him into slavery. Who sells him into slavery? Your own brothers. That means there was emotional abuse, verbal abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, all the kinds of abuse you could ever think of. And it didn't just happen at 17, it happened his whole life. He had nobody. And when his captors took him to Egypt, on the way they passed by the grave of his mom, and he escaped from his tormentors, and he hugged the grave of his mother, and he screams, he cries, "Imi, Imi, lama azaftani, mother, mother, why have you abandoned me?" And he's crying, and his captors catch up to him, they whack him. And that's when Rachel, Mama Rachel, goes up and she says to God, "What's going on? What are you doing to my child?" And he says, "Don't worry, the end will be good." But he goes then, and he's bought by Potiphar and Zlachia. Potiphar wants him for homosexual relations. Zlachia wants him for herself. And normally when you have a temptation, it's a one-time only temptation. She tempted him every single day. The Medrash describes at length the clothes she wore in the morning, she never wore at night. She changed her perfume and her clothing every morning and every night. And she told him, "If you sleep with me, I will raise you up. I will give you riches and fame, and I'll do everything for you. And if you don't, if you refuse me, I will have you buried in the pit," which is exactly what she did. She was a very, very powerful woman. Now that kind of persuasion, that kind of Yetzer Hara at 17, when you are a single, lost, abandoned slave, you have nobody. You're in a foreign country and nobody's going to know if you sinned. Your brothers hate you, your mother's dead, your father thinks you are dead, you have nobody. All those circumstances are against you. After 1 year, when she was alone with him, because everybody went to serve the Nile River, he said, "I cannot bear it anymore, let me just sleep with her." And at the very last second, he ran away from her. How did he run away from her? How did he have the power to run away from her? What does the Medrash say?
Picture of his father.
Very good. How do you know that?
I remember from Persia.
He sees Nir'et lo dmut diokno shel aviv. He sees an image of his father and he says, "Gewalt, my father, the forefather of Am Yisrael, will see me and he will be shocked that his son has sinned." The Medrash goes further and explains, what is it about his father that made him stop sinning? Because his father looked like
himself.
His mother.
His father looked like...
Adam Rishon?
Very good. You're in a roll.
That was
His
a-
father looked like Adam Harishon, Adam, the first man. And when he realized that his father looked like Adam, he said, "I can't sin." What? What does that mean? Why, when he saw Adam, did he say, "Oh no, I cannot sin anymore"? Here's what he realized. Adam was a person who was also tempted. Adam was told by God himself, by the way, not through an intermediary, by God himself, "You can do what you want, when you want, and how you want. Whatever your heart desires, go ahead and do it. I'm only asking you for one thing. One thing in the whole world. There's one tree in the Garden of Eden. I ask of you, don't touch it. Don't eat it. Don't eat it. Everything else, all the other trees you could eat from. Do you know how long it took Adam to sin? How long?
12 hours.
Approximately 3 hours. Under 3 hours. That's how long it took him to sin. He didn't even have time to taste of the good fruits. He didn't even have time to explore the world. Think about it. He didn't even have time to explore. He already sinned. And Joseph, when he realizes that his father looks like Adam, he realized one thing. I am not a single individual living my life as Melanie herself. Melanie is not Melanie. This is what he realized. Melanie may think that I am Melanie Oni. But Joseph says Melanie is not Melanie. Melanie, her actions affect Am Yisrael. If Melanie does something in her privacy of her own room, she may think, nobody's going to know. Nobody knows about it. No, there's no such thing. Her actions are affecting Am Yisrael. You see, Adam thought, what's the big deal? I eat a little apple. His actions affect every single human being for the last 5,785 years. Death was decreed on humanity because of him. You will eat bread by the sweat of your brow. Women become pregnant and then they give birth with tremendous pain because of the sin of Eve. Joseph realized that if I sin now, it's not going to be an individual sin. My sin will affect generations to come. It will affect the entire universe, the entire world. And when he realized that he's not a personal person, but he's a public person, he realized there's no way I can sin. This is a story I always like to tell. You know, there was a guy called Rabbi Zalman Posner. He was the first Chabad emissary to Nashville, Tennessee, sent by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. He's no longer alive, but he was the first guy sent on a train to Nashville. So in 1969, the Rebbe, by a Fabrein, by a talk on Shabbat, said the following. He said there was a rabbi that was interviewed on the radio this week, and he was asked a question by the radio commentator. He was asked, isn't Judaism barbaric? What's the punishment for eating a ham sandwich? Or a milk and meat sandwich? What's the punishment? What? I hope not.
No,
We pick up your shirt and we give you 39 lashes. So the radio commentator asked Rabbi Posner, isn't this barbaric? I mean, come on. Who does this? This is not the medieval ages, you know? Like this is they do this in Iran, in Iraq, you know? Saddam Hussein used to do this. Whack the guy 39 times for eating a ham sandwich. I mean, what? It's his choice. He can do what he wants, when he wants, how he wants. Who cares? And what Rabbi Posner answered on the radio, see, Rabbi Posner, you don't have time to put on ChatGPT. By the way, this week, until last week, I really thought that AI is a dud. You know, like they're making a big deal out of AI. Come on, you know, like, because I used Meta AI. I use on my WhatsApp status, it says Meta AI, and it gives me prompts all the time to use it. So I used to put there, what should I blog about? What should I give a Torah class about? And they used to give me ideas, but I said, this ain't nothing. This is nothing. And then before Shavuot, I saw ChatGPT, and I couldn't figure out how to use it because I thought you had to pay for it. But anyway, I figured out how to sign in my Google, whatever, you know. I signed in. So I asked ChatGPT, what should I give a Torah class on Shavuot? Something provocative that, you know, that will entice people to come. So ChatGPT says, is Donald Trump good for the Jews? And then it gave me another idea about, religious, it's forbidden to serve in the Israeli army. Agree or not agree? So I said, wow, this guy's like really good. So I've been using it every day since then. And ChatGPT is like it's really amazing. It's like, wow, it's taking the world by storm. Now I realize. So I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying? So Rabbi Posner, he didn't have time to go into ChatGPT and ask, the radio commentator, what do we do? Is Judaism barbaric or not? He would have gotten a split-second answer. Or he couldn't WhatsApp his Chabad colleagues. So he answered quickly. He said, what I mentioned before is, in order to administer lashes, you needed a couple of conditions. You needed 2 witnesses. You needed the witnesses to tell him, Tzvi, if you eat this sandwich, you're going to get lashes. And you needed Tzvi to eat the sandwich within literally a few seconds after the warning. The guy had to be a real shlemazel to get lashes. That's what Rabbi Posner answered. And the Rebbe said, this is what the Rabbi answered, but if he would have thought about the events that had transpired this year, he would have had a much better answer. 1969, what happened?
Land on the moon.
Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. Said the Rebbe, Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. You know what that means? Imagine Neil Armstrong would go and say to NASA, right? I'm on the space shuttle. This is my life. This is my seat. I can do what I want, when I want, how I want. You will not tell me what to do. I want to smoke my cigarettes. On this space shuttle. What would we tell Neil Armstrong? We would tell Neil Armstrong, how dare you? We invested billions of dollars to beat the Soviet Union to the moon. You are representing the United States of America. You're not representing yourself. You're on a space shuttle, and by you smoking a cigarette, you are endangering the whole mission. Everything will go haywire. But Neil Armstrong will say, this is my life. I can do what I want, when I want, how I want. They will tell him, no, you are jeopardizing billions of dollars and national security is at risk. And everybody would understand that Neil Armstrong is wrong. Said the Rebbe, this is what Rabbi Posner should have answered the radio commentator. Is Judaism barbaric for giving lashes for a sin like Ham? You answer, you are not your own person. Right? Michelle is not her own person. You are representing Am Yisrael. The Maimonides says you have to view the whole world on a scale. On the one side is all the mitzvot, all the good deeds of all the previous generations, including our own. And on the other side is all the sins of all the previous generations, including our own. And they are equally weighed. With your one mitzvah now, you will tip the scales and you will bring the Messiah. Mashiach will come because of your one action today. That is how we view the world. So that's what Joseph sees. When you sin, this is what happens. When you sin, you're affecting the universe. And Joseph says, I can't sin. So that is why normally you're not allowed to offer a sacrifice on Shabbat. But if your sacrifice is representing Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel, the public, then you're allowed to offer it on Shabbat. So because Joseph kept Shabbat, that's why his great-grandchild was offered the opportunity to offer his sacrifice on Shabbat, because Joseph taught us that we're not an individual person, we're affecting the universe, we're representing the universe. Got it? So this is what it means. The tools. When the Yetzer Hara comes to you, the spirit of folly, of stupidity enters you and says, sin, we tell the Yetzer Hara, how dare you? We are representing Am Yisrael, the whole nation of Israel. And by the way, this takes meditation, this takes focus. This doesn't just happen, you come to a shir, it goes in one ear, out the other, you come out 5 minutes later, you don't remember a thing from the shir. This is meditating, this is contemplating, this is understanding, this is thinking. This is internalizing this shir and making it your own. So this is part 1. Lesson number 1. Lesson number 2. You're never allowed to erase God's name. When I was 14 years old, my parents shipped me off to Israel. I learned in a school called Ma'arava. A Jewish high school near Modi'in. I was there for 3 months. And the teacher wrote God's name on the blackboard. So he wrote Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. That is God's name. What do you do now?
To bury the blackboard.
You cannot erase God's name.
Yeah.
Teacher was a secular teacher, so we had to take the whole entire blackboard and bury it. That's what we had to do. Because God's name can never, ever be erased. If you have copies of the Torah portion or whatever, you have to bury it. Shameless. You cannot throw it away. You get these brochures with God's name, can never throw it away. It has to be treated with...
Why didn't add more like letters after or before? And then
You already have God's name there.
or like change the hey to
Think like an Israeli, right?
It's gotta be the way around. It's kinda smart.
what not? Like seriously. It's
Yeah, but
It was in
one,
cursive.
yeah, no, but once it's God's name there, that's it. It's done.
even if you change it for
If it was
Yeah,
written
you-
originally like that,
Vav, like-
with God's name, you don't mess. You cannot mess with it.
Okay.
But we find over here that in the sotah water, we put God's name there, and God's name was erased. And the lesson over here is because in order to administer, to bring in shalom bait, peace between husband and wife, we have to, it's a mitzvah even, to erase God's name, to bring shalom bait. And whenever I officiate weddings, there's mandatory couples, singles, marital training, premarital course basically. Because today when things go bad, you just like automatically, get divorced. I got an iPhone, I got an iPad, I change it every year. I have a phone, I have a house, and I change it, so my wife, my husband, boom. And that's how we are with girlfriends and boyfriends, right? Thank you. With boyfriends and girlfriends, we are, like we have a boyfriend, we have a girlfriend, okay, a year later I have somebody new, bam, boom, bye-bye, adios. That's how we are. But Shalom Bayit teaches us, God wants us to have peace in the home, so much so that He's willing for His name to be erased. Okay? I wanted to go on this more, but there's not a lot of time. I want to get to lesson 3. Lesson 3 is the following. This whole thing that we're talking about tonight is actually a parable. Remember I told you the sotah, it never happened? The sotah is the relationship between God and Am Yisrael. We are the wife, and God is the husband. God warned us, don't be with another man. When did He warn us? When did God warn us? We just had it on Shavuot. God said the second commandment, Lo yeh lecha elokim acharim, do not serve idols. He warned us. But just like a sotah doesn't really and truly betray her husband, right? We don't know what happened there. So too Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel, will never truly betray their God. We are the wayward wife, but at the end of the day, we will never betray our Father in heaven. A Jew remains loyal, adheres loyally to God, to Judaism. A Jew, no matter where he or she may roam, they always come back home. And what is the waters of the sotah? What is that referring to? The waters of galut. The waters of exile, of pain, of strife, of October 7. October 7 is sotah waters. It's the bitter waters that we are tasting. But at the end of the day, after we drink the bitter waters, we discover that we were always loyal. Yes, it looked like we were in a room secluded with another man. It looked like we were betraying God, but we never betrayed God. So the waters of October 7 are the waters of the sotah. And it comes out afterwards that we never, ever, ever betrayed our God, our Father in heaven. This Shavuot, when my kids asked me, Musya, she asked me to take the kids to the park. They wanted to go to the park. So the first day we all went to the park because there was an ice cream party. We did a beautiful ice cream party on the Broadwalk over there. And the next day I took them all to the park. So I had 5 kids with me. I'm walking down right down 84th Street. I get past First Avenue, right? So I'm now between First and York. And one of my triplets, he takes his fist. I think see this live in front of me. He takes his fist and he punches the other guy, the other triplet, like really hard. He punches him, and sometimes he punches me. Now he's strong. This guy's 7-year-old, but he's powerful. He's angry, and the reason what triggered him is, I think, sitting there, either because the other triplet he dared to walk in front of him and beat him to the park, or he took his water. One of the two. I wasn't sure which one it was, but because of that, he smacked him. Now the other triplet, he decided then, he was so shaken up, he decided he's not going to the park, that's it, he's going back home. So he starts walking back to First Avenue, and he's about to cross the road. It's a green light for the cars. So there were 2 people there who start screaming, little boy, like, honey, what's going on? Where's the father? What's going on, And I was about 5 steps behind, and my reflexes are pretty good. After having 8 kids in New York City, you got to have very strong, powerful reflexes. I was there. And they also, push comes to shove, I screamed at him, don't cross the road. And they know my tone of voice when I'm serious, when they can, give in or not. So I was there. And what I did was, what should I have done to the situation now? Someone beats up your child, what do? Mark, what would you do?
Yell at his parents.
So the natural inclination is to beat the guy back up or something, you know. Actually, you know, I tell the story sometimes. It's actually the introduction to my book. I love the story so much. My book is coming out in 2 weeks. So the introduction to the whole book I chose was the following story. There was a couple that we were trying to, you know, bring closer to Judaism, bring closer to Chabad and all to activities. And, you know, they kept on coming to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, you know, here, there, Torah class. Anyway, one Friday night, we were in our apartment on Lexington 92nd. It was freezing cold, and it was only them and my family. And I was eating my soup, talking to him, and she was there, and Chevy May was in the kitchen, you know. And my son was playing with a ball behind me with their son. And I was talking to him. My son took the ball, he threw it on the wall, went on the other wall, and bounced back and landed
In your soup?
in my soup, splattering it all over me. The woman was horrified. She was in shock. She was in complete shock. She told me, this is the moment I captured her heart and her soul. This is the moment that brought her in. And today we are best friends, like we talk every day. This is the moment. Why? So she reminded me years later why. I didn't even remember the story. When she told me, I remembered it. But she thought at that moment, I would take my belt off and whack this child. Beat him up to a pulp. Boom, boom. Or at the very minimum, take him into the other room, and she was waiting for me to scream at him, to shout at him. I said to her, what did I do? She said, you took the ball out of the soup and you just continued eating the soup. And she said that was the moment that captured her heart and soul. Because it's not what she would have done. It was against everything. And this is the introduction to the whole book that I wrote. This is the story that I chose. But getting back to my triplets, so what I did was I took David, who was the victim, I held him down on the steps, and I said to him, do you want to go home or do you want to go to the park? He said, I want to go home. So I said, if you go home, everybody has to go home because I have to watch you all. So we all go as a group together. So he said, I want to go home, I don't care. So I said, fine, we all go home. And then Musia, my 9-year-old, came up with a genius solution. She says, David, I am the only one here with a scooter. Nobody else has a scooter. If you come to the park, I will give you my scooter to go to the park. So he said, yes, I got it. And I was thinking to myself that after October 7 was this whack that we got. We were punched in the gut. But we are being held by God. God is the one who holds us. He holds us. That hug, not beating us up, that hug, we are being held. And sometimes it's very difficult to see that God is holding us. He loves us. The relationship between us and God is one of love. It's like the sotah. The sotah is we think that she sinned. We're trying to ascertain whether she sinned or not, but when she drinks the water, we ascertain that she never sinned. She never betrayed her husband. So when we drink the bitter waters of the galut, of the exile, the bitter waters of October 7, of anti-Semitism, of Columbia raging across the universe, it's then that God holds us. And he says, I love you guys. I know you never betrayed me. I know the bitter waters of exile, you drank them already. It's now time to come home. We are together as one. So the whole idea of sotah, the husband and wife, is a relationship between us and God. That's all it truly is. I just want to end off with one final story. You know, there was a chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe. He went off the path. He left the Torah, left the mitzvot, became an assimilated Jew until there was nothing left. And he was wandering from town to town, took up work as a wagon driver. Years passed. One night, there were a bunch of Hasidim in an inn, drinking, farbrengen, saying the Chaim, enjoying themselves. And he happened to be there. And he got very angry. And he says, the Rebbe, he was like, nothing special. I used to know him. I sat in his room, sat with the farbrengens. He's nothing special. And one of the Hasidim said to him, don't think that way. Don't talk that way. The Rebbe still loves you. The Rebbe still thinks about you. He hasn't forgotten about you. He says, what? He doesn't even know my name. So the other Chassid said, just last night he mentioned your name. He mentioned you. And the wagon driver froze. He said, yes, what? Really? He said, yes. the Rebbe said in the Fabring, the night before, there's a chassid of mine, and he says, he may have forgotten me, but I have never forgotten him. And the wagon driver broke down in tears. And not long after that, he went down. You see, as Jews, we may have forgotten God, but God has never forgotten us. During the year, we may stray, we may go away, during the day, we may forget momentarily about God. We may think God forgot about us because of the bitter waters of the exile. But God's always there hugging us. And this is the lesson from the Sotah waters. So to sum it all up, 3 lessons we learned today. Lesson number 1 is never succumb to your Yetzer Hara. The reason why a person sins is because a spirit of stupidity enters him. Lesson number 2 is the Shalom Bait between man and a husband. And lesson number 3 is that the whole idea of the husband and wife is a mirror to the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people. L'chaim v'levracha.